Welcome everyone, Simon here from the World of Wall Street, an IOTA video here today for everyone, IOTA on the exchange. Before we go into this one, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel, and also don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you have not done so already. Guys, let's go straight into this one. We covered the Energy Web token yesterday in that video, and just transferring across a couple of things relating actually to the carbon aspects of the world, carbon trading, carbon transparency, but also a few other things. I really want to nail into the conversation around automation, IoT, AI, data. For me personally, since holding IOTA in the past up to now, I always feel that IOTA was really one of the top projects out there because of its now integration with the likes of the European Commission and worldwide initiatives, huge partnership integration as well with the likes of Intel, Dell, of course IBM, etc. Potentially working on the Hyperledger fabric as well. I'm not quite sure, but there are a few links to look at some point. But it's all around this topic of everything being able to work together through blockchain. The utilization of various different chains. There's not going to be one winner. There's no way. But they have kind of projects like we have with IOTA that use the direct to cyclic graph combination of blockchain technology. It's kind of like, in my opinion, the evolution of blockchain, allowing multiple devices to connect with each other, talk to each other. For us as users and consumers of products, as users of services, transportation, all of these things, including supply chain, all of that kind of stuff as well, being looped into one thing that just works. It just works simultaneously together. And IOTA has a big power with that. I'm going to leave a link of this video in the description. It's a really interesting topic. It was about a month ago now, but it's around the LF Edge topic, but also Project Alvarium, which is a big combination of the likes of Dell Technologies and IOTA working together for a completely new sort of trust mechanism around the world for all these different devices that are connected to the World Wide Web, Wi-Fi, etc., i.e. IoT, Internet of Things. And it really plays into this mechanism really of what we're trying to achieve over the next few years, and certainly as we get to 2030 for sustainability goals and all of these things as well. But what's really important and big topics at the moment is, of course, things like climate change. We're talking about sustainability, energy prices going up. Why is that? Fuel prices, why is that? And why are we brunting the cost when companies like Shell, etc., are boasting profits of things like $30 billion in a quarter? It's madness, right? So what's really interesting for me is that kind of bridging effect of us as consumers potentially becoming prosumers, where we end up plowing our excess and surplus energy into the systems and to other people around the world utilizing blockchain Web3 technology. But also, how can it help us see more transparency towards where are our carbon credits going or coming from, and why are our prices dictated the way they are? And there's so many intermediaries and so many brokers in between us and the actual grid itself, the actual producers of this energy and this fuel. It gets lost along the way, and we're kind of like dictated to. And we supposedly have regulators like here in the UK, Ofgem, where you could argue whether they're regulators or not. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think any of them do anywhere near what they're supposed to do to protect people and reduce those bills for us, especially exactly as I just mentioned a minute ago. You know, how much profit these companies are making is quite obscene. So within this, you've got the digital measurement, reporting and verification, dMRV. This is definitely a keyword and abbreviation you want to get familiar with over the next few years. Currently, we kind of use an MRV. It's basically what it's called at the moment. It's a traditional system with some of the things we just mentioned a minute ago, but obviously utilizing this digital aspect, i.e. blockchain technology, Web3 formats, data, AI, all these things. We'll go into a bit more detail about in a second. Really transferring that power into this opportunity to hopefully give more positivity towards us, more transparency and better cost efficiency as well. So as we go down there, you can see about the traditional MRV here and some of the limitations that it has currently. Cost is a big thing, and we'll mention that about blockchain in a second when we come to some of the digitalization aspects. But here it mentions about how expensive it is, particularly for developing countries. I mean, there's a lot of countries, guys, in the world that just simply don't have power, which is crazy, really. And that's what the one thing I like about blockchain and the ability of Web3 is that we can hopefully create more diversity, more equality around the world to people that haven't had it before or really need it. So there's a big opportunity there from a digital aspect. Technical complexities, we've talked about this in a few videos previously. Certainly that aspect, particularly like supply, logistics, all these kind of things. The technical aspects, yes, they're slowly improving, but nowhere near to the capacity that we need. And we'll go on to that in a moment because the numbers are quite staggering as to why we need to go into this new transitional format. Data availability, we just mentioned about transparency, time consuming, especially related to first things like resources, but also the intermediaries in place as well, and limited scope. So here is mentioning the focus on specific projects or sectors which may not capture the full impact of climate change mitigation efforts. For example, it may not account for indirect or long-term effects such as changes in consumer behavior or shifts in economic activity. The reason I've mentioned that in particular is because when we look at things like AI algorithm and data algorithm, this is where blockchain comes in. From the verification, the processing, the ability to potentially know what we need before we even know it ourselves. It was quite fascinating, really, and that's how the tangle mechanism of IOTA will really kick in. So digital MRV can improve many things, certainly from the data collection aspects. And this is carbon related. I think you can definitely apply this methodology to other areas of data opportunity and AI. We've mentioned many times like simple case study opportunities of things like harvesting and seeding via drones, and that's all based on our buying and selling behaviors as consumers in supermarkets, in things we order online. All of these things where every moment of us purchasing something, or at least the behavioral data to say we might be interested or not interested in this, or maybe buying this in a few months' time or not, collaborates together. Each of those moves is a transaction. It's a transfer of an action. And as I said, whether it's a forecasting, whether it's a potential buying behavior in the future, or something that you're buying now, or something that you do regularly. Like a great example, Amazon Subscriber, where I've got subscribe and save, right? So every month on the specific day, I get certain different items that I've picked that come on a monthly basis, toilet roll and all this stuff, right? The nonsense things, the boring things. But also every 3 months I have my 100% organic chocolate powder and stuff like this, where I know, and I've learned myself that actually I've consumed this in 3 months. So there's still a bit left. I'm going to order one every 3 months, porridge, everything. And I just sit here and it comes every month. It's all done. I don't go to the supermarket or anything like that anymore. But eventually that will all become very automated on the basis of things like conversations, on AI data, on behavior of things that I've looked at online or whatever it might be, creating this circle effect. And exactly what I just said, every one of those moments, every one of those thought processes are data implementations. And on blockchain, this is very important because blockchain can hold an obscene amount of data. It can verify, it can process it extremely fast. Talking about some of these chains doing 50,000, 100,000 transactions per second, that's why the number becomes important. Too many people still focus on transactions as financial transactions, but they don't think about all of these kind of things. So on an IoT perspective, Internet of Things, where we're talking, guys, 13.15 billion devices connected to the internet right now in the world, maybe a bit more than that, on the IoT spectrum. By 2030, there'll be 30 billion of them. Can you imagine all of these products and devices talking to each other? You're already talking about 30 billion simultaneous connection opportunities. Every millisecond, our routers are working. They're deciding whether something's connecting or not, or what transfers of data are needed. You can apply that to security cameras, to smart bulbs, to smart heating, everything. Our movements, our geo patterns, our transportation methods, everything will be concluded through this kind of system. So looping back to this data collection aspect, it gives you an idea of this, and comply that to the energy sector. Is when and where do we need our energy? Have we got excess? What happens to our excess? And all of these other advantages that you can get from this. Automation, we've just mentioned about the ability for something to happen before we even know it or want it to happen. Transparency being the aspect of seeing the exact correct value, and then us knowing that actually we're paying too much, or an algorithm's kicked in to say, actually, we're going to give you the better price because of this, this, and this. Cost effectiveness comes from the fact that we are able to make many millions of transactions per second now with the utilization of various chains and technologies in the blockchain sphere, and the scope of course being related to the opportunity for scalability. I mean, we look at these layer 1 layer 2 protocols and opportunities that allow the enhancement of the existing layer zeros to increase in network opportunity, network capacity. This really delivers an exceptional solution all round. And this is just the energy sector, guys. Exactly what I just mentioned, that this can be applied to pretty much anything, especially things related to the Internet of Everything, IOT, Internet of Things. I will leave some of these links in the description below as well. Here's a confirmation of some of the numbers or forecasting numbers expected for the connected devices worldwide. You know, guys, like transportation, booking things, things picking you up and taking you to the destinations you need to go to, or deliveries of things, or the supply chain mechanism, even to the point of manufacturing and producing the items or products, can all be done on this algorithm. And this is where it becomes very interesting for the interlacing aspect of AI and data. IOTA is obviously very heavily involved in all these things as well. But this whole entire aspect of what they call a kind of like the data confidence fabric is very heavily interlaced as well, where we talk about trust, privacy, all these things. If you're in a wireless car or a driverless car and that's driving past another one, how do we know that this is not going to communicate to the other one and deliver information about you personally or anything like this by accident? That's why the protocol, blockchain, everything's there for the verification, the processing, the whole entire level of security goes up extreme amounts of notches compared to the existing systems. And you build this entire network frame. And that's why I believe the tangle mechanism of IOTA is extremely important from the connectivity aspect. But the ability that if there's a failure somewhere within that ecosystem, or a potential threat to data or privacy, it automatically diverts to something else and finds another way through. I always kind of trying to describe it as if you could think of like a spider web, but then within that spider web you've got loads of different like milestone points, right, on each of the edges perhaps. But then if you add maybe 3 or 4 more layers of spider webs but in different angles, and you've got this like 4D dimension, and all these dots are all in different places, and they are kind of like the reference point of a device, and to connect to A to Z, for example, you would normally go in a linear line. But what if M and N are not working? It diverts around another way to get to that Z point and make that transaction, make that application work. And I think it's absolutely fascinating to think of it in this way. But there's massive consultations going on at the moment. Of course, as I said, with IOTA being heavily involved with things like the European Commission, this really builds a big stance of the magnitude, the scalability of this kind of technology being implemented, and what that means for the world. Even the US alone, 20.2 devices per home at the moment. In the UK here, it's slightly less, around 9. But there's an overall total in the US of 1.8 billion devices connected. And that's right now in 2023. And as that scales up, that's going to be mental. And that's just our homes. We're talking about everything being connected through 5G, AI, whatever it might be, outside of our houses. Can you imagine this? Can you think about this? Can you comprehend it? And that's why I'm invested in projects like this, because I see the scalability opportunity, the opportunity for mass adoption at both a government, parliamentary level, but also as us as consumers. It's really quite exciting and interesting, to be honest. But I'm going to wrap that kind of conversation up. As I said, I'll leave the links to some of these in the description. There's big partnerships, big integrations going on at the moment here. For example, we mentioned about like Dell, for example, IBM, etc. And it's going to continue, guys. The ISO standardizations, not just the 222 for finance, but also the other ISO compliances that are coming in for the energy sector, carbon trading, all of these things are going to be massively affected. And IOTA's Tangle is way ahead of the game. And this is one that I still think is under the radar, and I don't know why. But hopefully someone's learned something out there today. Hopefully there's potentially some new holders of IOTA, because I think this is one that's going to slip a lot of nets in people's portfolios, which would be a terrible shame. But there's big opportunity for growth here for sure, in both the technology and the price point. So on that point, actually, let's go into the chart for IOTA before we wrap this video up. You can see here in the historic information of IOTA on the chart, we had the previous highs of around $2.70, currently trading at 23 cents. And you can see the magnitude of opportunity, even to just get back to the previous bull cycle levels. I anticipate this getting to potentially $5 in the next bull run, maybe even higher. And certainly when adoption kicks in between sort of the years of 2025 to 2030, you'll see some substantial rises in this. I'm staking my IOTA at the moment. We've got plenty of videos out there before that we've done on how to stake IOTA for the assembly and the shimmer tokens. These are very heavily involved in the scalability factors of IOTA and its complexities of its technology trying to enhance itself. Those tokens are very important, and you get those through staking on the Firefly desktop app via IOTA. So that aside, we can do a cover video on that again if we need to, but we do have some from I think last year. But yes, this price point of around 23 cents currently is very interesting. We've hit some of the longer term fib retracement levels, which has seen some resistance. It tried to bounce back up to this sort of 24-cent mark. And in fact, in the last IOTA video, we drew this orange line in as of an area of interest, not just for the area downwards, but certainly an area of interest for potential resistance. And we're seeing that right now. We saw it just around about the 18th of March as well. And we saw this nice activity throughout February around this line too. So what's going to be happening potentially in the next few weeks? Well, I'm hoping to see some stability. I've got this macro fib level in here as well, if you can just see around this area. This gives a bit more of a closer definition of some of these kind of what I call like the bounce around areas. So you can see not only have we touched on this long-term fib, we've also hit this mini one here. And this is taken from one of the most recent low points and one of the most recent high points. This is a great chart if you delve into like the hourly charts and things like that, but this is the day one for now. So you can see there's some resistance. What I'm expecting is perhaps a bit of a bubble effect between these areas of 24 cents and 20 cents, which is roughly around here. I do have my buy orders still around 20 cents, and I'm still buying manually even at these existing areas of 23. One, because I like this resistance area that we've covered quite a few times, certainly in the last 3 months or so of IOTA. But I think this is a good area of accumulation, and I will be waiting at the lower regions as well. If it goes up, I'm not majorly fast. I'll be buying IOTA at various different prices, but as these lower prices come in consistently, absolutely going to take advantage. Right now, the other emphasis to mention is that we have some opportunities in these lower regions, but the RSIs are showing around 58 on the 14-day and 53 on the 28-day. This is referring to these numbers down here. So for me, it's slightly too high for me to accumulate too much at this area right now, which is why I'm just waiting for a bit more stability over the next few days and into next week to see if this comes down to around that 20 cent mark. Or at least to see a bit more sideways movements, to see those RSIs come down a bit more. So then in our heads and visually, we can see that there's a bit more stability than there usually is, and we might end up removing a lot more risk than we would if we didn't. So I think that's really important to understand. These are just my opinions and obviously thoughts on what I do as a accumulator and as a trader. For me personally, that doesn't mean that you have to do this, not financial advice, but it's been working for me so far. I think the moral of the story is to just keep the DCA pattern, keep being as much risk-free as possible, and identifying historically as well the important areas of IOTA for accumulation points. But yeah, other than that, performance indicators on the right-hand side are showing some relatively positive attributes towards IOTA. I think there's always a lot of positivity and confidence around this project, both in the short term and the long term. That weekly is showing 6% in the green, which isn't significantly massive, but it's not a bad thing either. And the same with the month and the 3 months too. So plenty of opportunity for growth in the future, and certainly something I highly recommend doing a lot more research yourselves if you're new to IOTA or don't understand it fully. Check out our previous videos, our intro videos, particularly around DAG as well, direct cyclic graph technology, because I think this in particular is a fantastic project to be holding in your portfolio, and also just from the generalization of how big and the high magnitude of this technology implementation is going to occur over the next 6-7 years, leading up to those 2030 agenda programs of the UN and all the other ones that are going on too. So guys, hope you found that interesting. We're going to wrap that up there. Don't forget as well to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and we will see you in the next IOTA video very soon. Take care and bye bye.